Hello, everyone. I just want to welcome you all to our panel on mental health and creativity. So to get started, You Set the Stage is a collaboration of 8 organizations, which include Girls Rock Philly, Y Media Labs, Scribe, Little Filmmakers, Poppin, Temple University. So in a series of online programming and youth-driven programming and online work throughout 2020 to 2021, You Set the Stage builds a network of organizations working in youth media throughout Philly. So we engage youth media content creators and provide platforms to showcase and present the voices and current perspectives of Philadelphia youth to create overall an audiovisual capsule of our current moment.
Hi, my name is Kawiya, and I represent Philadelphia Student Union, also known as PSU. Our last event that we did was called You Set the Stage Black Lives Matter Edition. We showed amazing creative videos and documentaries honoring Black lives and bringing attention to issues that the Black community face in Philadelphia. For today's event, we want to talk about mental health and creativity. As we've reached the 1 year anniversary of the pandemic, students and young creators have been going through a lot of stressors, mental health, academics, professionalism, and creativity. With this in mind, we want to host a panel where different healers, therapists, and facilitators can reflect on mental health, with the hope to provide our youth with particular tips, insights, and resources. The youth we serve is creative and will want to also explore the power of art. As a way to help oneself and others, we want this panel to be a space where our students can have a conversation and get more information about the resources available to them in Philadelphia.
So just to give some mindful notes before we begin, and also sorry if you hear noise in the background, but first I want to give everyone a content warning. The conversation that we had today may discuss some sensitive topics, so I want everyone to be sure to take care of yourselves in any way that it means to you. Be sure to mute yourself if you're not speaking, and be sure to be respectful so that we can ensure this is a safe space for everyone. So now we're actually going to introduce our first panelist, Candy Alexandra González, who is a Little Havana-born and raised, Philadelphia-based, multidisciplinary visual artist, poet, activist, and trauma-informed educator. Candy received their MFA in book arts and printmaking from the University of Arts in 2017. So since graduating, they've been a 40-year street artist in residence in West Philadelphia, a West Bay Few Fellow at Dieudonné in Brooklyn, NY, the Stockton Rushborough Foundation Michael Grant recipient, and the Linda Lee Alter Fellow for the Da Vinci Art Alliance.
We also have Bets. I want to make sure I say your name right. Charmelus.
You crushed it. That's what's up. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Bets Charmelus is a facilitator, community advocate, and an auditory storyteller. His work is based on helping others find the answers to the questions that they pose within themselves by honoring multiple ways of thinking, acknowledging multiple ways of knowing, and empowering multiple ways of learning. Whether in his work as a program director for the anti-violence music-based nonprofit Beyond the Bars, facilitating as a music instructor for survivors of sexual trauma with JJPI's BOSS program, coordinating men's mental health support groups, and oral storytelling in the nationally acclamated all-black rock band Ill-Fated Natives. Betts is passionate about finding and claiming new spaces, building strong interconnected communities, and exploring the difference between questioning oneself and asking oneself. Welcome, Candy and Betts, to the panel.
Okay, so we're going to start off with asking specific questions to all panelists. Well, we're going to ask specific questions to individual panelists, and then we're going to open the questions to everyone. So starting with Candy, I want to know, what does it mean to be a trauma-informed educator?
asking you, starting off really easy, asking super important questions. For me, it means that I am supporting everybody that I'm working with, and particularly supporting the most vulnerable of people that I'm working with. It means, to me, it means, being loving and caring and supportive, and to understand that I can really facilitate somebody's healing, and I can facilitate somebody's growth, and I can facilitate people's comfort. And so, that's why I do this.
Thank you. Our next question is to Bets. What is oral storytelling?
Wow, that's y'all are really coming with some heat. These are great questions. Uh, yeah, so I truly personally believe that storytelling is how my ancestors made it to where we are. I believe that storytelling is at the root of all of human existence and survival and thriving. So oral storytelling can be both speaking, telling stories with the mouth, and also telling stories that are received by the ears, orally through the ears. I believe that the use of music is the way to impart information that may not be able to be said through words. There are places in our brains that words don't live. And using music to tell the stories that I want to tell orally that'll be received by your ears. That's what I consider oral storytelling.
This question can be answered by all panelists. So what do you consider are the root causes of the main mental stressors that our generation faces today?
I can jump on that. So I would say one of the major stressors of the generations today is school and the way school is set up. I believe that school is set up in a way where grades are put on such a pedestal that you may think that good grades equals self-worth. And I think that's a very damaging mindset.
So I actually want to spin off of what Lily, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Lily said. I think that one of the biggest stressors of our youth today is dominant supremacist culture. And I think that grades and the way that the schooling system exists is actually a reflection of the bigger dominant supremacist culture of this entire country. And if y'all don't know what I mean when I'm talking about dominant culture, I want to refer to just a couple notes that I've taken from a book by Kenneth Jones and Tima Okun called White Supremacy Culture. So dominant and white culture and habits can be senses of urgency. If y'all have ever felt like y'all haven't had the time to process a question or to think about something, whether it's in school, whether it's like outside in some societal place or at a job, if you don't have the time to process something, somebody's trying to add pressure onto you and stress, that's a symptom of supremacist culture, dominant culture. It could be like objectivity, like black and white thinking, like this is better than this, and no spaces for in between, for the gray areas, for the ways that life and nature shows up. Nature is all about the middle in between, the grays, and not necessarily the black and whites. So oftentimes we'll be put in positions where it's just like you're either this or you're that, and if you don't fit these boxes, then there's no room for you. And I think that also adds a lot of pressure to our young people. Also, I'm seeing, and I think a lot of y'all might be able to relate to this. I'm seeing Columbusing is, again, taken from this book, individuals taking ideas from a certain community and then making money or getting value from those ideas, and not talking about the people who originally created these ideas. And I think the first example of that comes to my head are TikTok dances. TikTok dances are created by Black and brown creators who are amazing, who are very, very talented, yet you don't see them on the late night show doing the dances, do you, right? They're not the ones who are out there. So we've got white supremacist culture who is seeing these things that are being created and being like, I'm gonna grab that. That's what I'm gonna use. And then using the things that we've created to create value for themselves and build industries and build millions of dollars. So I think that I try to see where supremacist culture invades every aspect of our lives, because it's in every single aspect of our lives in this country. It doesn't it pervades everywhere, right? It's everywhere. If we go from school to work to our relationships, oftentimes our relationships don't have space for multiplicity, for us to show up in multiple ways. There's a way that even in my own partnership right now, I can be like, I've always been trained to be like, yeah, I don't want to watch this movie with you. And then that me saying I don't want to watch this movie with you also sounds like I don't love you, when it's actually like, I don't want to watch this movie with you and I don't love you. It's not one or the other, right? So just trying to keep an idea of where the symptoms of supremacy and the symptoms of dominant culture comes into our lives. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest stressors that I can think of for the youth today.
Is it my turn? Okay. Yeah, to kind of add on to what both Bets and Lily said, if we really, let's take a moment, like let's just look back into history. You know, we had these literacy tests for Black people, like when it came to voting, you know, and then if you got one question wrong, you were deemed like illiterate and you weren't able to do what you had to do in your rights as an American citizen. And now if we look at like what the school systems are based off of now, it's literally everything builds up to these standardized tests. You know, there's not really time to stop and ask these questions that we have. And when we do have these questions, teachers, they get an attitude, but we're not doing this to bother you. We're doing this because we want to understand. We're not doing this because we just want to waste time. We need the help, you know? And I feel like with that idea put in your mind that, you know, oh, you can't ask a question or you're going to look stupid, it just makes everything harder than it needs to be. So you really can't, I feel like not being able to ask the questions or growing up in a system where asking questions made you look inferior definitely puts lots of stress on the mind, because you're just kind of stuck with all these ideas and all these unknown answers, you know?
Personally, everything you're saying, I see in the school system myself. The standardized tests, the grades, everything, all just comes back to one specific thing: white power, in my sense. Because the part about stealing ideas, we wouldn't have African American history today if it wasn't for our people fighting for it. But you don't hear about that. You don't hear about how we got that into our schools, not they just decided randomly we'll put it into schools and make it a required class for us to take. But you don't hear about the Black poets, the Black musicians, the Black artists in schools as much as I would like to hear about it. You know, we all had that one little section of Black history, what they want to call it, in our books, but it's nothing but slavery. You don't hear about the Black Panthers. You don't hear about the other people besides from Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King, because there's way more people on top of that. There were more people in the background. Yes, we all know about Angela Davis, but there's more people behind Angela Davis that helped her to get to where she is today. We don't hear about any of these people that helped them get into these positions. So why have African American history or history in general if we're not going to speak the truth? And then on top of that, our grading system is just messed up, because I'm going to be honest. I was where Lily just said before, basically saying, oh my God, I cried over a C before. Like, it's like, oh my God, I'm not going to get anywhere in life, because that's what our schools has put into our heads. If you don't have those A's and B's, if you don't have that 3.0 or 4.0 GPA, you're not going to college. You're not getting anywhere in your life, because without a college degree, what you're going to get? A 9-to-5 job that pays you nothing? You're not going to get that job that you strive for your entire life unless you've grown up from money, which the people like us from the hood, we didn't grow up from money. We didn't grow up from, oh yeah, my mom and my dad set up a trust fund for me so I can go to school. My parents pay for everything that I got. No, we have to start off from the age of 15, 16, working 9-to-5 jobs, growing up, saving our own money, getting to where we are now. And it's just crazy to think about the fact that it's really people out here with this perspective that, oh yeah, everything's easy for everyone. No, it's not. It's easy for you because you had that parent that went to college, that did all this, that did all that. And I don't understand what colleges want out of that. You should want me for the knowledge I have, not for my grades or the fact that I got my work done. Because that doesn't show you anything about me or what I'm going to get done or what I'm going to learn when I go to school.
Yeah, that was actually really well said. It's actually really sad because we're at a point now where more students are focused on graduating in itself and not really on actually learning the material. So, and also I see that Candy has had their hand raised. So do you want to share now?
Hey, no, thank you all so much for bringing, all of those super relevant things up. And honestly, something that, I definitely struggled with a lot, and all throughout school. And it's a lot of pressure to have on one body, to live with, right? Because the thing is, right, with things like that, we feel like we're not in control. And that can be extremely unsettling on us, so I kind of wanted to address something that I saw in the chat from Sam, and also connect it to something that I heard from Bets. And in response to a question that I think at the root of it all is like, it's trauma, right? When I think about trauma, it's really the impact that systems of oppression have on us. It's the impact that certain events have on us and our lives, right? So it's not so much the thing itself, but what it does to our lives, right? What it does to our sense of security, and what it does to our sense of safety, our ability to build community, our ability to live as whole, realized humans, our sense of control, right? And so as I'm hearing y'all talk about grades in school, like, school is a system, right? School is a system that was designed by somebody who thought they knew better than everybody else. But so yeah, no, that's really what I was, just trying to draw those connections for you all from all of the different things that, I've been hearing, and all of your insightful experiences, and everybody I can see like just nodding their heads along as folks have been sharing their stories. And so just the awareness that y'all have already is such a huge step towards changing these systems that really make us feel like, we're not in charge of our own lives.
I'd love to jump in and kind of just really, because Candy, you touched on everything. It was really great, and I really love what you said about community. I think the concept of, for example, standardized testing was brought up. The concept of standardized testing is based on the idea of individualism, right? Like my grade is better than this person's grade, and I made it and they didn't. And the counter to that is community thinking. And I feel like as one of the biggest things that this culture really tries to do is to separate us from our experiences and individualize our experiences, so that it feels like we are the only ones going through the trauma that we are engaging in. And like Candy said, seeing people nod and being able to relate to that, it really proves that like it's actually, no, all of us are experiencing this, and all of us are going through this at once. And knowing that it definitely helps lift that burden a little bit. So yeah, thank you so much, Candy.
Okay, thank you everybody for your responses. Our next question is also for all panelists, so anybody can answer. What advice do you have to help young people identify what kind of support that they need or that they can get?
Well, it seems like I'm unmuted, so I'm just gonna jump in there. I was thinking about this all day today, because I was just sharing with Bets earlier, these questions that y'all sent us are incredible, and gave me a lot to think about as well. So I thank you all so much for that. And the one thing that I wish I would have heard earlier in my life is one, that all of my feelings are valid, all of them, right? that there's room like to feel them, right? Because what I've been realizing now is that I spent so long just pushing away all of the ugly feelings, and they just kept on getting bigger and bigger, and I kept on getting even more intimidated by them. I spent so much of my life dismissing those feelings, right? And so I didn't think it was like worth my attention. And so, the one thing that I want to share is like, well, first, I think the biggest part of knowing what kind of support you need is knowing yourself, right? And knowing what you need and valuing those needs and giving them the importance that they deserve, right? And in order to get there, you have to be able to embrace the good and the bad, the pretty and the ugly, like all of the good feelings and the bad feelings, right? The positive feelings and negative feelings. Because when you shut down some of the less comfortable feelings, then you're also shutting down the good feelings. When you're shutting down the less comfortable feelings, you're ignoring your needs, and then you get to a point where you don't know what you need, or you don't acknowledge or open up to what you need, right? So I think it really starts with being able to get comfortable with yourself, right? Being able to get comfortable with all of your feelings. And it's really, really hard work. And so I'm not going to lie to anybody and say it's all candies and rainbows. And, there's hard days when you open up to everything that is life, right? Life is unpredictable and wild, and we do the best that we can with what we have. And I personally have learned that the more that I open up to all of it, the more that I can actually identify what I need so that I can ask for help, right? So I can reach out to my community and say, hey, I need you to listen to me. I need you to sit with me. I need you to hug me, whatever. Yeah.
Can I go? Does anybody else want to go? Can I go? The best advice I could give you is definitely it's not one size fits all. Just because someone goes to therapy or someone is on meds doesn't necessarily mean that's what works for you. And I understand not everybody has the means to go to therapy or be on meds, but I feel like to kind of add on to what Candace said, you have to kind of know yourself. And I feel like the best way to start to do that, even if you don't have anybody to talk to, try writing how you feel down. If that doesn't work for you, then see what else you can do. But definitely don't right immediately go to, I need to go to therapy just because that's what someone else does. It's definitely, it really depends on who you are as a person and what you feel can help you the best.
I think Jay and Candy crushed that. I have nothing else to add.
I actually had like a follow-up question. Candy mentioned getting more comfortable and opening up. So I'm wondering if you have any like tips on how you can get more comfortable with the idea of opening up to people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great follow-up question. And baby steps, baby steps. So the way that I usually do it, the way that I encourage, everybody that's in my life to do it is it's like everything, it takes practice, right? Like you definitely do not wake up one morning and just open up the gates, it takes, maybe little things, right? Somebody that you're close to, you can share a little thing, and then that person affirms you and makes you feel validated, and then that motivates you to share maybe something bigger, right? Or even with yourself. Like I even do that with myself, is sometimes I practice being honest with myself about how I feel, what my experiences are, and then after I can admit it to myself, I'm like, oh, that wasn't that bad, so I can do something bigger next time, right? So you can practice. If you have somebody who you trust in your life, that you trust with all that you are and all that you have, then you can start that way with them, or even with the practice with yourself maybe first before you move on to sharing with others.
Thank you for that. So now my next question for all panelists, how do you personally stay mentally healthy, and how do you integrate art into a healing process?
These questions keep getting better and better and better. They're so good. I'm gonna break that one down into two different questions. And my response to the first half of that question, how do you personally stay mentally healthy, ties into a lot of what Candy just said. I really rely on the power of what I call radical vulnerability. I think that there is a way that I've been trained as a child to now to try to protect myself in all ways and not mention when my feelings are hurt, not mention when I'm sad, not mention when I'm feeling ashamed by something, when I'm feeling guilty. And when I'm practicing radical vulnerability, it's when I'm in spaces with my friends and families and loved ones and just be like, hey, I just want to say, like, you said this and it left me feeling this way. I don't personally believe anybody can make me feel any way. At the same time, I think that people can leave us feeling certain ways. So when I'm feeling shame, when I'm feeling guilt, just like Candy said, being able to name those feelings and just be like, okay, I'm feeling ashamed. Okay, cool. Let me live with that and be in partnership and relationship with that rather than being like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling ashamed and then throw it away. Name it to tame it. Candy? Yes. And then I took a couple notes. How do I integrate art into a healing process? I actually, in order to do something like this, I kind of just try to shift my understanding of what art even is. I think I've been trained that art is specifically one kind of thing. It's just when somebody paints something or when somebody makes some music or, takes a picture, that's art. When in fact, the way that a bird sounds is art. The way that my mom laughs when she's like really happy or when I told her a funny joke, that's art. And being able to engage with life in that way, like everything about life is a reflection of art, then I'm understanding my art that's coming through me and coming out of me is changed completely. And I'm not recycling the things, the thinking processes, the belief systems that I've had before. I'm allowing other things to influence me and jumpstart my healing.
Both parts of the question are kind of one and the same for me. The way I stay quote unquote mentally healthy is I like to paint and I like to switch my crafts like as the seasons change. So there's chaos around me. So I can kind of distract from the chaos that's in my head. I know it's probably not the healthiest, but that's what works for me. And I feel like, viewing the art, like painting and expressing how I'm feeling on paper, rather than keeping it in myself and just making myself miserable, I have to make the canvas miserable, So yeah, it's kind of a twofold thing.
I love that. I have so much respect for painters. And yes, to expressing and releasing it all onto the canvas. The thing that I'm practicing right now is patience with myself. I realize I have a lot more patience for everybody except me, right? I'm really quick to relieve pressure from folks in my life and remind them that they're incredible, remind them that they deserve rest, remind them of all that they're worth, and then I don't do that for myself, right? So one thing that I practice is asking myself, how do I treat my best friends, right? And then turning that around on me, because there's enough wealth to go around. There's enough of that love to share. So I gotta, turn some of that around onto myself. And in terms of, mental health and creating, I start off all of my classes. So I teach at different levels, right? I teach college students, I teach some high schoolers, I teach grown folks, and I start every one of my classes by reminding folks that art is a healing tool. And the reason I do that is because, when we experience really hard life things, the way that our brain is functioning is that we're working out of the parts of our brain that are sensory. So we are processing in colors and sounds and textures and feeling, touch, whatever, right? And when we are making art, those are the parts of our brain that we're engaging as well. So it's such a natural fit for us to be able to express that anger, right? Or express that sadness or sorrow, or express joy through painting, through music, through sculpture making, through knitting, whatever your craft is. You're engaging the parts of your brain that are sensory in nature. And so, we're able to draw the connection and in many ways process some of the harder stuff that we're not able to process linguistically or verbally.
Okay, well, we'll move on to our last and final question for all panelists. What accessible Philadelphia-based resources would you like to advocate for? That was the end of the question.
I can go. Yeah, there's so many great, community led organizations in Philly. Just off the top of my head, for example, Fleischer has Teen Lounge, and so that's a free after school art making program. And because it's virtual now, they have like teens from all over the country. It's pretty awesome. And the folks who teach there are local Philly artists, and teens get to choose the classes that are taught. And I've also facilitated some, self-care and mental health art workshops through them. So that's a really cool resource. For example, I know that Juntos, which is an immigrants' rights community-led org, they also have like youth support resources. Asociación de Puertorriqueños en Marcha in North Philly also has a lot of youth support resources, and they're actually currently, and it's something that I'm co-facilitating with somebody else. They are providing restorative art workshops for their teens. So we talk a lot about mental health. We facilitate a lot of restorative art, activities and exercises and things that, get to help you process and learn more about yourself. So just, check them out.
Okay, I have a few. Sorry, they're all on Instagram. One is Dimples for Days, which is actually a girl from Philadelphia who actually started out at the age of, I think the program started out when she was about 13, 15 years old. And ever since then, she's been helping out her community and the youth. So I'm actually a part of one of her programs right now. It's called Dimples Dreams. It's basically a fellowship where they actually pay us for basically doing stuff within the program. So they help us with job readiness and preparedness. They provide us with the money we need for professional clothing for job interviews. They help us find scholarships for seniors and juniors, as well as help us do resume writing and give us professional headshots for jobs, interviews, anything that you need. It's actually a really good program. I think she has about 7 spots left if anybody wants to join. The Instagram is dimples with 2 Z's for like the number, and then days with 2 Z's if anybody wants to follow it. I'll put it in the chat.
Kawia, that was incredibly informative. Thank you so much for that. That was really great. I would be remiss if I didn't just jump in real quick and say I want to talk about Beyond the Bars. That organization has my heart. Music Beyond the Bars is an organization that's dedicated to teaching our youth music. If you ever wanted to learn an instrument, you have no experience on instruments at all, or if there's an instrument you kind of know a little bit about and you want to learn more, if you ever wanted to be in a band, what we do is get together artists from Philly, musicians from Philly who are volunteering and teaching music instruments to students who want to learn. We are starting to pay students to learn, and we are offering job resources as well. So like career building resources, that's a part of what we do in the organization. So yeah, I really want to invite everybody here, anybody who wants to learn an instrument, who just wants to start from scratch and wants to learn an instrument. You can learn the best instrument in the world, the bass guitar. It's my favorite instrument. At Beyond the Bars, that's what I teach there. So yeah, I'll add the link to the chat. So Beyond the Bars, music beyond the bars.
Thank you for that. Also, I want to thank our panelists. You brought a lot of good things to this conversation, and for that, you're very much appreciated. So now I want to open the floor to our audience. So everyone is free to participate. If you want to unmute, you can select the raise your hand option, but you can also drop any questions or comments in the chat.
There's a question in the comments that says, what's one resource that you go to, like a must for young folks, especially, I'm just going to say people of color. I know what the POC means. People of color youth.
That's a really good question. The only thing that I have to offer here is reading from Black queer women and Black reading anything from Black women in general. I am currently reading a book called Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown, and it's amazing. So I would definitely extend that to anybody who considers themselves BIPOC. I think it's just really an incredible book for countering the effects and the symptoms for the society and cultures that we live in today.
Okay. Well, I have one answer, and then after that, I'll ask our next question. So my answer to that would be, I don't know if it's necessarily a resource, but for those that need help with anything mentally, physically, or just specifically need a break from anything, if you're an animal lover, I would suggest going to like the SPCA and volunteering. They always want new volunteers. They always want people to help out. That's a good way to release stress. I've also found this very useful. If you have a pet, or even if you don't, you can go to the store and buy it. This might not be the best resource for everybody, but the squeaky toys, the soft ones, if you take them and like throw them at like a wall, it actually really helps you get out anger rather than like punching it or throwing something hard at it and possibly breaking your fist or the wall or anything like that. It's a very good way to just get out stress and anger, because like you're relieving yourself of something. You may not speak it, you may not say it, but it just helps you in a sense, to me, calm down. But also Skate University. It's not an actual university, guys, by the way. So basically you can go and take your skateboard, whatever you choose to ride. They teach you how to skate. They have events. It's a really fun thing to do, especially just to get out and meet new people. There are COVID restrictions, so there's safety if you're worried about that. But if anybody else has anything to say, you can. If you don't, I'll move on to our next question.
I was going to add a resource that I would want to share with the students, and then I know we're recording this, we might share it. Lisa, hi. I kind of had a brain fart when we were planning this event, and I have a really cool friend who runs the Creative Resilient Youth program. And I saw on Instagram, and I reshared it for anyone who follows WHIY, that they have a mutual aid fund for students, creative artists. So I'm going to actually share my screen real quick, but I wanted to tell everybody about it. So I'll just share. And it sounds really, really cool, and you should check it out or tell your friends. So And they're a group of young people and also old artists, but predominantly they work with, this is for younger artists, and they have an applications out for a care fund, and they kind of like go through some of the tips. I only just recently found out about it, but it sounds really awesome. And before COVID, I actually saw the first collective of Cry, which was 2 years ago in 2018, or no, 2019. And there were a group of students who made some really cool artwork expressing things that they've dealt with their mental health. It's like just a really cool resource. And it's also awesome that Cry is putting together this fund for young people to apply to have aid during this time to help them. And they're prioritizing LGBTQIA and people as students of color. So, and their website is their website, and I'll drop it in there, but really cool, artsy people dealing with and sharing mental health resources and artwork. So I'll drop it in the chat, but just wanted to share that's really cool resource for y'all to know about.
I just wanted to jump in and Kalia, those toys are called fidgets. I have a bunch of them lying around, like little soft things that I can like be playing with while I am speaking. I get really fidgety, and that helps. So for folks who want to like Google them and maybe get some fidgets, are awesome, and I use them all the time. You know, and I guess one thing that I wanted to put out is that my like go-to resource is my best friend. You know, I think about how like we are resources for each other, and just think about how Sam called you a super resource earlier, particular Kuya. And so, you know, we are beautiful resources for each other as well.
Thank you everybody for sharing, and I'll move on to our next question. What can you do when you're having a mental breakdown, or what do you specifically do?
I can jump in. So something that's really important is to ground yourself in the present, like try to bring yourself back. So what happens is that sometimes when you're having a mental breakdown, you know, you're kind of transported and your timeline gets all weird. And you know, if those moments feel endless, so oftentimes what helps is to bring yourself back to the present in that space. So usually, if you can sit and identify like 4 things that you see, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you smell, 1 thing that you can touch, or something like that, or any variation of that, you know, then those little just engaging your senses will help you come back to the present moment. I go to the breathing exercises, and it's literally just so what I do is the inhale for 5, holds for 4, exhale for 6, right? And so just literally introducing oxygen into your body helps. And one thing that I preach with everybody who will listen to me is to have a safety plan. And it's literally when you're feeling good, like if you're feeling calm one day, just sit down and write down the things that work for you, like calling a friend. Thank you so much for throwing that in there, Lisa. Like meditation. Thank you, Sam. You know, write down those things and put them up on a wall so that, you know, or put them in your pocket or put them in your phone, whatever, so that when you are having that moment and you like your capacity to think has been constricted, then you can look at that and already have a game plan of, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to call my friend, write down the number of your friend, right? If you need to put them, you know, in your emergency or your favorites on your phone. Or, you know, oh, I need to drink a glass of water, or I need to whatever. So definitely engage your senses.
As far as writing, even something as simple as writing letters can be helpful. whether you're writing a letter directed to a specific person, but you don't exactly want to give it to them, still writing it can provide you with like a specific type of closure, but also as far as reflecting, there's a website that I found where you can write letters to yourself, to your future self, actually. So I started like about a year ago, and it helps me like reflect and see how much I've changed over the months, because it's crazy how much can change that quickly. So just looking back on those letters, you can see like times where you felt good about yourself and you felt comfortable, and it helps you identify the things that you did to feel good, so that you know that you can incorporate those skills in a time of need. So yeah, just writing letters can be helpful. Yeah. Sam has their hand up. You can speak now.
Oh, thank you so much. I wanted to shout out to Candy, the resources that you've offered, because like they've actually saved me in summer of 2020. It was really, really heavy time, and writing a safety plan when I was feeling good became a support that I used again and again, just to keep track of myself in movement work and my own healing work, and also my professional life too. So shouting that out. And borrowing a cortex when this is another tip from Candy, when you are overwhelmed and you can at least know that you're overwhelmed. Sometimes it's helpful if you have that friend you can reach out to who can remind you how to take care of yourself. Because when we're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode, when we're super activated, it's hard to think for ourselves. And we also struggle to meet our basic needs. Our bodies can't even digest. So hard to make decisions. But if you can borrow a friend's brain who has all those faculties, they can help you make sure you go through your checklist of care, and also see a little bit more of those like bigger picture care considerations you might take. Like, let's take a walk, drink some water, but also like, this song always makes you feel good, let's listen to it. That can get you into that higher level of thinking too, to make a big container for you to feel safe in. So borrowing a cortex is great. And to do that in advance, when you know you're going to be burnt out or scared, like I'm going to visit my family and I know they're going to misgender me and have a lot to say about my politics. Can you talk to me on Saturday night and talk me down? Because I can anticipate that that's going to be really hard. So like you can take care of yourself ahead of time with those relationships. And I just wanted to offer too, I have 3 letters that are put in places around my house where I know I can look, like I have one right above my desk. So when I'm overwhelmed or I receive some bad news or something's happening in the day that's really activating, I can just look up and read my letter, or read an affirmation or read a poem. I have a Mary Oliver poem and the radical gratitude spell from Adrienne Marie Brown. Beth, thanks for bringing that person in. But it's helpful to have even a Post-it note that says you belong, or I love you and appreciate you, and you can read it out loud to yourself just to breathe and make that true when you can't feel or trust it. Y'all are amazing.
Yeah, affirmations are great. And also I've been really like getting into poetry. So as far as poetry, something that I started to do, I don't exactly know where I got this idea from, but I'll take something as simple as a book or even like a pen or something, and I'll turn it into something super dramatic. So I create a whole story off of simple objects. So for someone else reading it, they may think it's something super, super deep, but it's actually really simple. So I take simple things and I turn it into something bigger and more beautiful. And it kind of like, it helps me focus. And I don't know, it just makes me like get creative, which is very helpful for me. Yeah. Sora, you have your hand up.
Yeah, going off like what Sam just said, like music definitely helps calm me down because it can remind you of memories like from a specific sound or a specific time and bring you back to that time and help you calm down. And that's just something that I use, and I'm not sure like if it works for everyone, but it works for me and it definitely helps me calm down. And I also like to talk to people just so I can like get it out. Like if I want to talk, and if I don't want to talk, usually I just like zone out and listen to music.
For me, I don't generally like wallow or something like that. For me, I like to be productive in those times, and being productive could be mean something completely different for anyone. But for me, I like to like learn something, usually creatively, like drawing something new or some kind of editing trick or camera work, just something like that that'll kind of keep my mind productive and going in those kind of times where I'm not fully in it. So yeah, that's something I like to do.
Awesome. Such great answers. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. When I'm having one of those moments, I either eat or take a nap. I think those things are really, really important. I found this happened to me this week because of everything that's been going on. I felt myself getting activated, and I realized that when I'm in that space of, it's like a very low level but consistent stress that just kind of carries on for a week, a month, 2 months. Realizing that sometimes I might forget to eat, and just going to grab something to eat real quick so that my body has everything that it needs in order for me to continue. And then napping and resting is really, really important, especially for Black and brown folks, because napping is where we can dream, and dreaming is how we tap into the imagination. This is how we imagine a new world ahead of us, despite the world that we live in and in spite of the world that we live in. Trisha Hersey is another resource. And Trisha Hersey started what's known as the Nap Ministry. And Trisha Hersey says your rest is your resistance. So anybody whose parents like gets on them for sleeping, be like, I'm resisting right now. That's how I always say, I'm resisting right now. I need a nap. I need to sleep, because our bodies really, really need rest. So yeah, I think in addition to everything that's already said, eat something, take a nap. That's what I would say.
A lot of the time, I feel like I don't even understand my own emotions. So it's like, how can I explain how I feel to other people if I can't even reflect on it myself, because I don't understand what's going on? And also knowing me, sometimes if a person asks me something as simple as, are you okay? I'm going to want to break down right there. So yeah, sometimes I feel like sometimes I don't exactly need advice, or I don't need a solution right away. Sometimes I just feel comfortable knowing that there's somebody there, but I don't like to feel pressured to just open up like right on the spot. I just like knowing that I'm not alone, and that helps me relax.
I 100% agree, but then it comes down to, then they get mad when you be like, not when you be like, when they ask you for the story and then you can't tell it straight. It's like, I'm still in my head trying to contemplate what happened my dang self. Y'all asking me what happened, and it's like, you gotta give me a second. Oh, okay. So we have reached the end of our event. I would like to thank everybody for attending. Remember to follow us on Instagram at You Set the Stage. And before we leave, we want to thank both panelists for their time and knowledge, for the wonderful work that you guys do, and for being here and basically giving us advice and helping us do